Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we've got a quick and dirty real talk. Again, just with myself, Terry, and Aroha, because we like to chat. So, this is what you're going to get. So, today on our quick and dirty, we are talking about what happens when people perceivingly steal your ideas or copy your work. How do you handle it, Aroha?
Well, over the years, way back when, it did used to bother me, not gonna lie. It was just like, what? I just did that, and now their images are looking exactly the same as mine. And what the hell? I spent so much time invested in bringing up, like creating that concept, and now someone's dashed and took it away, and it's not like doesn't feel like mine anymore. And you know so yeah, and it did used to irritate me. Then there was a point, and I think I can't remember the educator that spoke to this, but there was no, I wasn't an educator actually. It was when I was in um photography school, and one of my lecturers, because I did schooling late, like found this career late in my life. So, and they said nothing that you create is 100% original, right? So, and I'm like, wait, hang on a minute. Like, if I'm going to photograph that bowl of fruit and I'm going to put the apple here and the pear there, then I created it that way. Like, how can you say that's not original? He'd turn around to me and say, do you know how many people have photographed a bowl of fruit? Do you think you're the first one to do it? And I'm just like, oh, right. So it was from that point that I was like, I obviously had an idea of photographing that bowl of fruit, for example, that had come from somewhere else, right? So I'm like, well, yeah, I used that person's image as inspiration. So now I was in the position of, okay, so how can I be upset if someone's seen my image and seen that as inspiration, and then they've done it in a way that suits their style or whatever, or looks similar to mine?
Mm.
So then I just threw that out the window, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to create it how I'm going to create it. And if someone finds inspiration in that in some way, then that's great. But they're not me, and I'm not
Mm.
them. So, sometimes as photographers, we get hung up on that a little bit, like, oh, she stole my idea, or they're shooting it just like I shoot it, and whatnot.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're the creative artist making it image or whatever the case is your own, right? And if someone sees that as inspirational, then I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that you found my image inspirational enough to then look at it and then take it away and put your spin on it,
Hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
just something that as creatives that we get hung up on, I think. And it's not to say that it doesn't sometimes irk you,
You?
right? Like, but if that's the perspective that taken on it, because using up that energy to be upset with someone in the interwebs that doesn't know me or whatever, and thinking that, oh my God, they've stolen my idea. I don't know. For me, it's just like, I had the idea, I did it my way, and I moved on.
Well, and who my thing is all like at first, similarly to you, when I first would see somebody like start shooting the way that I was shooting or whatever, I would be upset a little bit and like, they're, and you know what that is? That's our fear that somebody's doing it better than us.
Hmm.
Right? Like, how dare they? Because if it was a piss poor job of it, you wouldn't act, you'd be like, okay, good luck. Like, you wouldn't even think of it, right? But if your fear is in the way of like, oh God, they're doing it better than me, they're gonna steal my clients. Oh my God, my clients are gonna go to them and book them. Like, that's what's running the show. It's not that they're copying your work. It literally is like all this other internal bullshit. But like you said, the way that our brains work is it works off representation. So anything you think is a unique creative idea is because your brain is comparing it to something it's already seen before. Yeah. And it may put things together and it may synthesize things a little differently, but ultimately it only knows what it has already seen. And so you have received that inspiration from somewhere that already exists. So in that case, nothing is original for real. And it is all just like built upon and created upon. And that's where I realized, like, early on, because I also wanted to be a teacher, I was like, yeah, if I want to be a teacher, I definitely can't gatekeep anything anyways. In fact, I get so much more joy out of being like, here's the thing that I did. You want to know how to do it? Like, let me show you the ways to do this. Like, I didn't want to be like have a secret. I didn't want like to be secretive about creating things. I was like, no, let me create content that like actually teaches you the secrets. Like, they're not secrets, these are just things that I'm trying, and you try too, and it will be cool. Like, I think that's how innovation happens, is when we build on each other's work. And I also think, like, I always in my mind, I'm like, do you think Annie Leibovitz sits around and is like, oh, these photographers are copying me?
No.
No, that bitch already knows she's Annie Leibovitz and doesn't need, like
And she doesn't care, right?
no, because she's pulling in her own money. Like, she's focused on her own
Yep,
clients
she's
doing the
making
same thing.
bank. So
Yeah, like she's focusing her energy on what she does. And I'm certain that's not to say, obviously, I don't know her personally. So maybe she has moments where, like, oh, this photographer is also creating this. I'm certain every photographer has that. But ultimately, yeah, it is what we're making it mean to mean more. And like, yeah, sure, maybe there's places for trademarks and important things like that. But ultimately, like you said, if the whole point of it is to inspire clients, even, like, you have to be willing to put your work out there to inspire them to know that they can do it. And that's the risk that you take doing it. And so I don't know. I think it very much if you're too focused on you and how is this affecting me, you're not thinking enough about your clients, and you're not, or your students or whatever. You're not thinking enough about other people. At least that's my opinion in this quick and dirty conversation.
absolutely, I agree with that 100% because yeah, it's ultimately, I think, like you talk about ego getting in the way sometimes, right? And it
Sometimes
does because it's that feeling of like, well, I created this and it's mine, and
I want credit
I
for it.
know, exactly. And it's like, you know what? I've always been of the mindset that if we share, like you, with the content that you create, it makes the community as a whole a better place because you are anteing up the entire industry because
Yeah.
you're putting stuff out there that people can learn, they can take, they can go and then tweak it to suit whatever style or whatever it is that they're trying to create. I think that's a good and beautiful thing,
Well,
right?
and when we're starting, you have to emulate. Like, that's the whole process of a beginner thing, is emulating things that currently exist.
Yes.
So in that event, you're probably not going to make, it's not going to look like if you're just beginning, it's not going to look like the person you're probably looking to at first, but like, it's part of the process of learning lighting. Like, I remember going through magazines and like, okay, how can I recreate this lighting? Or how can, oh, I love this pose. Let me do this pose with this body. Let's see what that looks like. Like, it becomes a great way to use as inspiration. And when we hear our brains tell us, oh, they're copying me, don't give yourself so much credit, my friends. You're special, but you're not that special. Like, I think, as hard as that is to hear, and I don't mean that to be mean, but that's tough love, Terry. Like, they're not, it's somebody across the freaking world. Like, they probably did not see your image. And if it is somebody in your own town, take it as a compliment for the most part. And if you're really that hurt about it, have a conversation with them. Because if
Right.
you're not willing to have a conversation with them, then don't waste your breath and energy complaining to the rest of the internet that somebody's copying you.
Exactly. And
Because
that's
that's
the
not
thing,
going to get
right?
you the outcome you want.
Even here, and like and most of you know now, like I have my own studio spaces that I shoot in, but I also have them as rental spaces for other photographers. And I remember when I first started out and people were like, oh, but why would you let other photographers into your boudoir sets and they're just going to create exactly what you created? And I'm like, and like, that's okay if that's what they want to do, but I can guarantee 9 times out of 10 that they'll come into the space and they'll shoot it completely different to me. I mean,
Mhm.
I am okay with them seeing my work on Instagram or whatever and being like, oh, that's where she does that because that is where the light fall off is and whatever, whatever, right? And I'm just like, that's great. Something that I showed out there is something that you can then go, oh, I'm reading the light now. Like I can see where the light's falling, or that pose. I really love that pose on the couch. So I'm going to try that. Like I get joy from seeing that because I'm like, one, providing the space for them to do it in, and two, they're seeing my work and going, I can try that too, and it's okay. Right? Like I've never been one to hold secrets from anybody. If there's something that someone wants to know about how I like something, how I speak to my clients, or how, where I get my inspiration for wardrobe or whatever it is, I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide. And I think that comes back to when, I don't know, back in the day when you used to have like a really influential photographer and you were new on the scene and there was always this divide, like
Mm.
it was like they held on to the information and weren't prepared to let it go because all of a sudden then you're going to be like them. And and I was always totally 100% the opposite. I'm like, what do you want to know? I'm an open book. Come and ask me the questions. And if I can help you, then I'm going to do it. Right. But there was definitely in previous years, and I'm talking, a few decades ago now, that there was that mindset that I have to hold on to the information and I can't share it with anyone else because then they'll know my secret.
Well, I used to even think that about teaching, like teaching workshops. That was my ego was like, oh, but then your students might be better than you. And my mom, who's also a hard ass, was like, Terry, like that's just going to encourage you to challenge yourself to be better or learn something new. That's
Right.
being a teacher. Yeah, dummy.
And then,
Like,
and so what if they do?
well, that's the
Like,
thing, and it's like
that's
that's
amazing.
what you want if you're teaching. That's what you
That's
hope
the
for is that your
goal.
students like succeed you. That's the whole point of being a
Exactly.
teacher. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's my ego getting in the way
exactly.
again. Okay.
Right? Because that's
Yeah.
that's what it's about. If that's truly what your purpose is for wanting to teach or whatever, it is to see your students and attendees actually succeed and excel. And if they go beyond or past you in some kind of way, then be just super happy for them
Well,
because
and
it's like,
like you can
wow, I
still be.
helped them get there and now they're soaring.
And the thing is, you can also still be competitive if that's in your nature, because some people just that is who they are. But like, not at the expense of like, oh, I'm so bad because they're doing better than me, or oh, who do they think they are? They're copying me. Instead, say, okay, I see it. They one up to me. How can I one up them?
Yeah,
Like using it in a
you're a
playful
competitive
way of
person
challenging.
yourself.
And yeah, it's like when the people like McDonald's and A&W or whatever, they have like the billboard wars. Like it's just like use it as an opportunity to say like, okay, how can I make this even better? Like what is the next level that I can push this to, and just use each other as a way to like build your skills instead of tearing each other down, I think is the whole point. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, but that's the difference between a fixed and growth mindset. Is a fixed mindset will say like, oh, they're copying me, who do they think they are, blah 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 blah, and focus on like staying stuck, like not doing anything about it, just complaining about it. Whereas a growth mindset says, okay, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling some kind of way.
Yeah.
Is this helping me, or what do I need to move through to like put this energy into a useful form? And or what am I afraid of? That's the biggest thing you can ask yourself when you feel jealous, envy, whatever, squidgy about seeing somebody whose work is looking like yours, is what am I afraid of if it did look like mine?
Yeah. Honestly, and I think too, when you're in a community where you have a lot of photographers or boudoir photographers in the same area as you, and you start seeing work that's similar to you, like you get that, like, and in the past it's happened, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment there where it was me. I was like, oh no, like I can't, like, how are people gonna separate their work from my work or no? And it's so funny because if you look at Jessica and my styles, even though we have different emotive feelings behind our imagery, the actual way we shoot is pretty damn similar. Like you couldn't, some, when we put photos up of each of our work, sometimes people can't tell the difference, only that mine has a more sexually charged energy to it and her is very much the vulnerability piece that she's so well known for. But it's just like, okay, what are you going to do about it? You can sit and wallow in it and be like, oh, they took my stuff, or they look so much different, but so much similar to me. How can you be different then? Right? It's like upping your ante and going, okay, let's try something out of the box or something
that's the thing, because there's only so much you can do technically, and we're all shooting with the same quality gear for the most part. Like, but this is why also going to, like, referring to one of our past videos, going to workshops, shootouts, things like that with other photographers, you're all seeing the same model on the same set with the same wardrobe, but everybody's photos are going to have something just a little bit different. And would you say that, yeah, they copied each other's work? Kind of, a little bit, because it was set up by the educator, but there will be just enough different. And that is the special sauce that each person brings to the table. And it's nothing to be afraid of. Like, you're inspired, so let other people be inspired by you. It's okay to let other people be inspired by you. Now, here's the thing: if they're blatantly taking your photos and putting them on their website,
that's not okay.
That's a whole other actual stealing your pictures. That's not okay. And there's like websites to handle that. What we're referring to is when you accuse people of copying your set design, your editing, your posing, your lighting, your methods, because we've all done it. This is how we get to where we are, is by learning from other people and then synthesizing all that information to make our photos.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So don't be afraid if somebody is mimicking your work or whatever. It's okay. Acknowledge the feelings that you're having and then figure out why.
Because that's about you. It's not about them.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, friend.
You usually do. All right, friends, that is it for this Q&D. We will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.